Yeah. Ah. Does that mean that you want me to call an emergency meeting of the Security Council? Okay, I'll start the ball rolling.
Wars, like fires, tend to spread. Since the mid-40s, many sudden outbreaks of hostilities and other threats to peace have triggered urgent consultations among a small group of men in New York. Those who sit around the Security Council table at United Nations headquarters. The United Nations was created at the close of World War II to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. These words are part of the preamble to its charter.
We are just studying the situation, but I think the best is we hold the map here and...
Still, it's very boring around here.
Yes.
The Security Council, one of the 6 organs of the UN, is entrusted with one primary responsibility: to maintain international peace and security in accordance with the principles and purposes of the United Nations.
Artillery, small arms, and a few artillery rounds fell in this area and that area over there. But in the main headquarters area...
Due to the urgent character of its work, the Council is officially always in session. Delegates must be within reach at all times.
Yeah, so you can brief the Council immediately, because I intend to call the whole Council for consultation.
They often meet on short notice, sometimes in the middle of the night. The presidency rotates among its members on a monthly basis, following English alphabetical order.
The 2143rd meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is before the Council in document...
The Council consists of 15 member nations, each having 1 vote.
If I hear no objection, I shall consider the agenda adopted. The agenda is adopted.
China, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States, the 5 major founding partners of the UN, are permanent members and, as such, have a right of veto. 10 non-permanent members are elected for 2-year terms by the General Assembly. To be adopted, the Council's decisions, its resolutions, require affirmative votes by a majority of 9 members or more. But on a substantive proposal, a single no by a permanent member means rejection. That's the veto.
I shall now put the draft resolution to the vote.
At times, vetoes have caused the Council to be deadlocked, unable to act.
Those against?
There were 167 vetoes during the United Nations' first 35 years.
Abstentions?
But, on the positive side, over 480 resolutions were adopted, aimed, all of them, at defusing potential conflicts.
The result of the voting is as follows: 12 votes in favor, 1 against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted since a permanent member of the Council has cast a negative vote.
Any country directly involved in a dispute can be invited to participate in the deliberations, but without the right to vote. Either party can bring a dispute to the Council's attention. The Secretary General or any member state of the UN can do so as well, if and when they deem the matter a threat to peace. Most often, the Council just issues recommendations to help solve a problem. But it can also decide to take enforcement measures, some economic sanctions, for instance, or even military action against an aggressor. The very first case considered by the Council was in January '46, when the fledgling UN was still based in London. It was a complaint by Iran against the Soviet Union.
In accordance with the articles of the Charter, delegates having been appointed to serve on
The Council made recommendations, and on that basis, the dispute was settled through bilateral negotiations.
And in session.
In 1948, a Jewish state was proclaimed in Palestine, and full-scale hostilities immediately broke out between Arabs and Israelis. First, the Council ordered a ceasefire.
To issue a ceasefire order to their military and paramilitary forces to become...
Later, the Council set up a special body to supervise the truce, and then dispatched an international group of military observers to report. Their task was to investigate and adjudicate any violations. Under the Charter, UN member nations were to make military forces and facilities available to the Council to help maintain peace, but that was never implemented. In 1950, when North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel, the Council, with one permanent member, the USSR, absent, recommended that military assistance be given the Republic of Korea through a unified command to repel the attack.
Under these circumstances, Mr. President, this wholly illegal and unprovoked attack by North Korean forces, in the view of my government, constitutes a breach of the peace and an act of aggression. This is clearly a threat to international peace and security.
The United States ordered its forces into action under the UN flag. Subsequently, 15 other countries contributed combat troops, and 5 more sent medical units. To this day, it remains the only military action ever ordered by the Security Council. The Soviet Union and 4 other member states said at the time that they considered this decision illegal. Because of a Security Council deadlock, the first UN emergency force, the one sent to Egypt in '56, at the time of the Suez Canal crisis, was a creation of the General Assembly, not of the Council. But the Security Council has since, on its own, created other ad hoc peacekeeping forces to maintain calm in some of the world's turbulent spots. Through the years, 25 nations have contributed units to these forces. At one time, there were nearly 6,000 UN soldiers in blue helmets in southern Lebanon, another 1,200 on the Golan Heights, and 2,300 standing guard between Greeks and Turks in Cyprus. A small group of military observers in Kashmir patrols the old ceasefire line between India and Pakistan since 1965. In 1960, disorders engulfed the former Belgian Congo, then newly independent, and Belgian troops intervened. The Security Council not only called on Belgium to withdraw its forces, it also instructed Dag Hammarskjöld, then Secretary General, to provide the Congolese with assistance. This evolved into the United Nations operation in the Congo.
The difficulties which have developed in the Congo are well known to all members of the Council. They are connected with the maintenance of order in the country and the protection of life. I have received 3 communications from the government of the Congo. They are all 3 known to the members of the Security Council. It is therefore my conclusion that the United Nations should accede to the request of the government of the Congo.
The United Nations operation in the Congo did not just help re-establish order and peace. More importantly, it provided all-around technical assistance to help build the infrastructure of a brand new country. Anytime the Security Council meets, the eyes of the world are on its proceedings.
Next speaker is France. Right.
Okay. Believes that any realistic search
Take
for
A.
peace
Israel on
must
7.
take into account
Iran's 1946 complaint, Palestine, Korea, the Congo. Some of these events have begun to recede into history, yet they illustrate various ways the Council can defuse potential time bombs.
under the Charter for
Cela vaut aussi pour l'actualité. Tout cela doit être pris en considération compte tenu des dispositions de la résolution. C'est une question dont nous devrons également nous occuper.
Que se haya medias en su fase de
It is
evolución.
true some problems have been before the UN for years and still seem nowhere near solution. But many issues have been solved, or at least kept from leading to wider conflicts.
Tienen esta misma dificultad que yo, se les dé una aclaración.
Agradezco al representante de Liberia por su declaración y por las amables palabras que se
There
han
is
dado.
wisdom to the saying that it is better to talk than to fight, and no one knows how many words have already been spoken around that horseshoe table. Everything that is said is not only interpreted into other languages, it is also duly recorded in verbatims, and summarized in summaries, and printed in press releases, and made available to the world's media, for them, in turn, to report and analyze and editorialize, and put on newsstands and broadcast. Sovereign nations use their wealth, power, and influence to back up their policies. The United Nations can only rely on moral authority. In its resolutions, the Security Council can only deplore certain actions or call upon. It notes with concern. It reaffirms the necessity. It condemns. It recommends. It urges. It proposes. But short of sanctions or a peace force, the only leverage it can use is the pressure of world opinion, and that is no guarantee of quick results. In 1960, following an ugly incident in Sharpeville, near Johannesburg, in which 69 anti-apartheid demonstrators were killed, the Security Council called on South Africa to abandon its hateful racial policies. Nothing much happened. In '63, the Council decreed a voluntary arms embargo against South Africa, and finally, following the Soweto student uprisings of '77, it made that embargo mandatory. The UN has long recognized the legitimacy of the struggle of the oppressed people of South Africa in their pursuit of basic human and political rights. But to this day, these rights are still nowhere near being implemented. Neighboring southern Rhodesia had long been a non-self-governing territory under the British Crown. In 1966, shortly after a white minority proclaimed independence from the United Kingdom, the Security Council, for the first time in UN history, imposed mandatory sanctions on imports and exports. These sanctions by themselves did not solve the Rhodesian problem, but added to the pressure of world opinion, they gave moral support to the popular resistance movement. Finally, in April 1980, Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, and a black majority replaced the white minority at the reins of government.
Mr. Prime Minister, I am happy to order the raising of the flag of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
That was an occasion for the Council to exercise one of its other responsibilities, endorsing the application of a state for membership in the United Nations.
Well, it's a great moment for the United Nations, and good luck and the best for the future.
Other non-emergency functions include the recommendation of a candidate for the post of UN Secretary General and the election of judges for the International Court of Justice. It is axiomatic that deliberative bodies transact more business outside their chambers than during formal sessions, and the Security Council is no exception. Many a council meeting has been called to order hours after it was scheduled to meet, due to protracted behind-the-scenes discussions. Because potential conflicts between governments can really be solved through compromise. and compromise is much harder to achieve once opposing national positions have been proclaimed in open meetings.
This is United Nations Radio. I remind listeners once again that we are still awaiting the arrival of members of the Council, and I've just been handed a note indicating that the delay we are now experiencing is due to the fact that members of the Council are in consultations.
The representatives hold their informal consultations behind closed doors in a small conference room built expressly for that purpose, right next to the Security Council chamber itself. These scenes are the only ones ever filmed there.
Thank you very much.
And so the Security Council session is finally about to begin. We've been waiting for about 45 minutes. The session did not begin on time because of what the diplomats call informal consultations, meaning private meetings, trying to assess the situation and see whether a resolution of some of the difficulties here is possible. Meanwhile, the coroners of the United States...
Maintaining peace, or at least an uneasy calm in the world, is the Security Council's raison d'etre and one of the United Nations' most important functions. As a delegate once observed,
the Security Council, Mr. President, is the most prestigious and authoritative of the organs of the United Nations. It is endowed by the Charter with the capacity to take mandatory decisions. But our esteem for this body derives not only from the binding character of its authority. We are endeared to the Council because of the moral and ethical foundations on which its decisions must rest.